Got it. All right. So good morning, everyone. My name is Stephanie Jeffrey, and I am co-chair of the Chicago chapter of Women in Real Estate. Since Brittany is here, I'm going to let her tell you guys a little bit about women in real estate, and then I'm going to introduce our speaker for today, Ms. Lenor Sherman. Brittany?
Hey, I wasn't planning to be on camera. I'm still, if y'all know me, I'm very laid back, very like work from your bed type of person. But I'm so happy to have this space because there's so much education that I've seen imparted over the past 2 years since Women in Real Estate. And it hasn't been quite 2 years, but we're going to say 2 years for round numbers since Women in Real Estate started. And I love the opportunity to learn from all of you incredible women and to connect with y'all. So basically, Women in Real Estate is a movement where we uplift, empower, and educate one another. We're here to help identify your life purpose and your goals and support you in any way that we can to get you to those objectives, not only for you, but your family and for your community. There's something that happens when we empower women. There's something that happens to our communities that doesn't necessarily happen all the time when we focus on men. So that was huge for me. Understanding that was such a big thing for me because I wanted to have the most impact I could in the world. And I understand that only comes through supporting and impacting others, and the most impact comes from supporting and impacting women. So that's kind of how Women in Real Estate came to evolve. And now we have a couple of different ways that we support our members. We have a membership where we go through accountability. We keep each other. We have events like this and a lot of in-person events. We have a supporter type of position. If you are a part of our clubhouse, we consider you a supporter. I just got something that said my connection is unstable, so I hope you guys can still hear me. And then we also have a now international real estate team. Since I got back from Dubai, we got our first international real estate agent and partnership. So I'm very excited about that. And what I love most about our real estate team is you can be a part of any brokerage, you can be anywhere in the world, and we will do our best to support you by sending you business. And we ask that you do the same so that we can refer that business to other women in our network. And then I think the final kind of piece of the puzzle is probably our investment opportunities and our fund. So not only do we all invest with each other, but we are able to bring in additional investors to support the projects that the women and supporters of women, i.e. men, have going on. And we are launching our first fund at the end of the year to support minority-led and women-owned development projects, or any large-scale project that would require syndication. So that's kind of a quick rundown of W.I.R.E. If you are interested in membership, if you're interested in being more involved, how you can be more involved, please reach out to me, reach out to Stephanie, reach out to Sabrina, and we'll be happy to tell you all of the ways that you can join the tribe.
Brittany, while I have you on screen, can you just take like 30 seconds really quick to tell us about your development project that's going on in Houston? You have a mixed use commercial property under development. Just tell us really quickly how that's going and how someone could get involved with something like that.
So, right. I'm really incredibly thankful. So I just got back. So I went on a trip to Dubai. It was a vacation, but the way my life goes, it's never like a vacation. I love real estate and I find ways to do it wherever I am. And so when I planned that trip, I did not have this property under contract. And it just so happened that I was supposed to close on the property while I was supposed to be in Dubai. And thank God we had an awesome title company and an awesome team behind us because they made that possible. And so, yes, I just closed on my first development project. It'll be 6 single family homes in Houston, Texas, 5th Ward. It's about 3 streets away from a development called Houston, like East River, there we go. And it's a 2.4, I want to say, $billion development. So I'm really excited about the appreciation that is happening in the area. I'm hoping to keep these. I'm hoping to refi these. I'm hoping that my investors, after they get their initial returns back, will want to reinvest and keep these properties with me. Because I am all about the buy and hold strategy. It's about 6 minutes from Minute Maid Stadium. So I think it's going to be an awesome short-term rental. So yeah, I'm happy to talk more about it. I'm only going to take these 30 seconds, but super, super excited. And the best part is that I got to this place from W.I.R.E. We've created so many awesome connections. Chris Senegal is my co-sponsor on the project. We met him through W.I.R.E. He's an avid supporter of W.I.R.E. He's lending his space for our next event in Houston. Incredible. And that's kind of the power of this network, is like, even the men who are involved are really there to support and really want to support and will help. And so I would never do this project by myself. For my first time, I would want, that support, that leverage, and I'm really grateful that we have that.
That's awesome. And congratulations, Brittany. I know that's a big deal. I can't wait that is me saying the same exact thing. And I'm happy to have a network like W.I.R.E. to help me push that goal forward. So thank you for sharing. As you guys heard Brittany say, if you guys are interested in learning more about W.I.R.E. and how you can be involved, please reach out to her, myself, or Sabrina Beer, and any of us will be happy to get you more information. And without further ado, I am going to introduce my sister. This is actually my personal best friend and confidant, Lenor Sherman. She's an amazing woman, mother, wife, author. She's a real estate investor. She owns Sherman Investment Group. She also owns 360 Realty and Development. She's a licensed realtor and consultant as well. I mean, I learned so much from her over the years, and you guys are going to get a wealth of knowledge today. She's actually a property manager and owns several doors herself. So you're going to get a lot of insight on how to manage and run your rental businesses. So without further ado, Mrs. Lenor Sherman, you can take it away. If you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments and we'll ask them at the appropriate time.
Good morning, ladies. How are you today? Hope you guys are ready to get some information. Thank you, Steph. Thank you, Sabrina, for inviting me on. And I am so excited to come on here and share with you guys. I wish there had been a W.I.R.E. Women in Real Estate back in 1996. I have been in real estate since I was 18. That's when I purchased my first property. I'm just going to give you guys a little bit of background as to who I am, what I do, so you guys know how I'm pulling all of this together. So back in 1996, my senior year of high school, I did some research on real estate and I fell in love with the industry. I realized that it was one of the ways for us to build wealth and for us to obtain wealth for our families. If we're not a basketball player, we're not an inventor, a doctor, lawyer, there was no other visual way for me to become a millionaire or to create the wealth that real estate could bring for us. So I purchased my first property at 18 and I just fell in love with it. That actual first property was a flip. I bought it through a process of a process in which I paid down on the property for about 1.5 years, and then I was able to receive the deed. Over the years, I have worked as an asset manager for the Chicago Housing Authority. I've worked as a property manager for about 10, 15 years. And as of recently, I've become a real estate developer in which I buy properties, I rehab them. Half of them I sell, half of them I hold them. I do both of it. Some of my clients that I work for, a lot of them are out of state and they consistently had the same problems, which is they could not find someone that could manage their properties for them. See, this is the thing in real estate. It doesn't matter how much you acquire real estate, the most important aspect of real estate is actually stabilization. That is the most important thing, because if you have thousands of pieces of property and you have consistent turnover, you're never able to build your wealth, because you're never able to build the equity inside of the property. So as Stephanie stated, I am a managing broker here in Illinois with 360 Realty. I own Sherman Investment Group, which is my investment company that my husband and I are partners in which we purchase all of our properties under. I own my actual construction company, which is 180 Construction. And then my last company that I started, which is Investors Property Management Solution. And with that is I work with investors to help them resolve their property management issues. And so today we're going to talk about the pros and cons of landlord. And so a lot of people want to become a landlord, but they really don't understand what they're undertaking when they decide to become a landlord. And so I want to discuss those pros and cons with you guys, so you have a clear picture as to whether or not it's for you or it's not for you. So the first thing I want to explain to you guys is being a landlord comes with a lot of responsibility. There are good and bads inside all of it. Now, if you are a people's person, it is more good than bad. So I'm going to go over a couple of my notes because I did want to make sure that I hit all my points. Is that okay with you guys? And please take your phones off mute so that you guys can interact with me, if that's okay. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, feel free to ask me those questions or let me know so you guys can talk back and forth with me, because this is a dialogue.
I want you guys to keep your phones on mute until you have a question. If you can raise your hand and let me know. Because if I take everybody off mute at the same time, all their background noise is going to permeate and you won't hear you as well. Okay, but you guys can raise your hand, okay? And then I'll let you know.
Perfect. Okay, so being a landlord comes with a lot of responsibilities that require both your time and your money. But if you choose the right property, and invest in the right property, you'll have enough money saved for emergencies. Being a landlord can make you a lot of money and even turn into a full-time job. So we're going to talk about a couple of the pros, because we're going to go through a lot of pros before we even look at one kind. Because for every kind there is in landlord, there's a resolution that comes with it. Okay, so the first kind is passive income. One thing about me is that I travel a lot, and I'm able to travel a lot and go and work from anywhere in the world because I have the passive income that comes in from my rental property. Perhaps the biggest benefit to owning real estate is the passive income that comes with it. The second thing is it pays for itself monthly. If you get a property that has good income coming in, it would eventually pay for itself. It pays off the mortgage. You should be able to have some profit left over. And as it pays down the mortgage, you are building equity in that property that equates to your wealth. Third thing is great security. Having real estate is great for you as far as investments. As we can see, stocks go up, stocks go down, but real estate is a consistent investment. It does not matter if appraisal values go up or down, because they're going to change with the wind as far as the market shifts. But it's a safe bet. That is the one thing. Everyone will always need a roof over their head and someplace to live. So you're always going to have income coming in when you have a property. Another thing is the flexibility to sell. Okay, so when you have a property and your value goes up, you have the ability to sell the property. One, if you decide that you no longer want to be a landlord, but also if you decide that it's in your best interest for you to sell the property, so because you have a lot of equity inside the property. Option to move back. One of my first properties with my husband we bought was a townhouse that we had no mortgage on it, and we kept that property in case times ever got hard. We wanted to make sure that we had a place that we could always move our family to. So it's an investment that you can always move into. It's good for diversifying your investments. So if you have savings, you have cash, you have stocks, you have bonds, real estate is good for diversifying your investments. They get the mortgage interest deduction. So when you own real estate, you're able to do depreciation and write-offs. So it's always good for your taxable income. Travel costs are deductible when it comes to real estate. Anything that you're traveling to go and check on your properties, those are deductible in real estate. as well as any legal fees. Any legal fees that you have with evictions, those are tax deductibles as well. Things you need to know before you become a landlord is, one, you want to always treat your real estate and your rental as a business. That is very important. A lot of people find it very difficult to treat owning property as a business. And I state that it's so important because when it comes to commingling funds, if you receive your income coming in inside of one account, you should have an expense account that's totally separate. Never put your rental income inside the same account as your paycheck or your groceries and everything else. Treat it like a business so that you can get the deductions and your tax returns can be done like a business as well. Buy the right property to rent. I have spoken to many of investors who decided that they wanted to continuously scale. For myself, I have found that owning single family townhomes, condominiums, and up to 4 units were the best for me. And the reason they were the best for me is because they were easy maintenance. When you start scaling into the 6, the 12, the 18, the 24 unit, I found that that was not personally my soft spot. More tenants inside of a building requires more work. That means more plumbing, more electric, more hallway cleaning, more security, and things of that nature. So you want to make sure that when you invest in real estate, that you get the property that matches your personality, that matches the amount of work that you personally want to do. I personally love single family homes because it's only one family inside of that house. And it's one family that is responsible for upkeep or for damages and things like that. That's my soft spot. I like 2 flats as well because it's only 2 families in there. So the smaller the property, the better the property for me personally. Some people like large buildings. It's a larger overhead. And just to be honest, frankly, it does not necessarily mean that you're going to get more profits from it. Because I have some people who have 6 units buildings who have a higher tax bracket, who have more maintenance on it, and their profits after everything is less than what I receive on per door inside of my single families and my 2 flats. Okay. What is very important that I tell people is that you must learn your city, your village, your town's rules and regulations for rentals. If you're going to be renting inside of a city or a village, you need to know what their requirements are. I live in a suburb called Oak Lawn here in Illinois. Inside of my village, they require that you get a permit to rent your properties out. Now, there's a house on my block that is currently here right now that they have put in abandoned status because it was being rented and the homeowner never got a village permit for it to be a rental property. So now it's inside a building court. You don't ever want to have it whereas you're inside of non-compliance with your village or your city or your town because you don't pull the correct permit. So a lot of our suburban cities outside the Chicagoland area require permits. A lot of people look at it as if they don't want to go through the hassle of pulling a permit or going through the rental inspection, but it's for your own safety as well. So you want to make sure that you know what your town, village, or city requirement is for owning a rental property. Now, we're going to go into one of the most important things, which is tenant screening. And I'm going to save that for last because I'm going to give y'all my secret sauce for screening tenants. But screening is very essential to the stabilization and the growth of your property. So we're going to talk about that later. Another thing is cultivating the landlord-tenant relationship. That is important. On day one, once I've selected a tenant, I put down the hammer on them tenants. I let them know what to expect, what I am looking for. Rent is due on the 1st. It is late after the 5th. And the thing is that when you have a relationship with the tenant, then everything goes smoother. I don't send anyone in to do all of my work for me. I actually build a relationship with them on day one and set the tone for what the expectations are as the tenant and the landlord relationship. That is very important. Oftentimes, people have problems with being a landlord when they don't have effective communication with their tenants. And we're going to go into that a little further. And be hands-on. Some landlords or some owners choose to hire a property management company, which it is great. I 100% support property management company as I have a property management company. But what I explain to every owner is you should know your property. So if you are an out-of-state owner and you have property here in Chicago, you should have visited that property. You should know something about that property. 100% of all your knowledge shouldn't come secondhand. So when you acquire a new property, get to know that property, get to know that building, so that when someone calls you about a repair or is needing something, you're familiar with that property. So get to know all of your properties that you own on a firsthand basis before you pass them off to a property manager. And one of the most important things is making sure that you have the proper insurance coverage for all of your real estate. And the reason is Chicago is a very slip and fall friendly city, meaning that you want to make sure that if somebody slips and falls, somebody breaks something inside of the building, something falls on a person's head, that you have the correct insurance coverage so that you're not the one going bankrupt when they decide that they want to sue. So those are some of the biggest things that are important for you to know becoming a landlord. Now, we're going to talk about a couple of the cons. Cons are things that we just need to make sure that we are putting in preventative measures so that they don't happen. Depending on the type of renter that you acquire, you know, it could be a headache to be a landlord, especially in this day of VPN numbers being used and the day of after COVID where people are being evicted, people are being terminated, or people just don't have their stuff together. For me, I have over 32 properties in which I have tenants in. Over the last 2 years, we have not evicted one person and have maintained a 99% collection rate over the entire COVID. And that comes from our screening process, which we're going to go over. So making sure that you have the correct tenant can prevent you having to go through an eviction, okay? Making sure that you have effective communication with your tenant can ensure that you know what's going on in their life so that if they decide to start falling behind on rent, that the two of you can work together with coming up with a resolution, whether that means that they're going to hand over their keys or that you're not going to put them through eviction. Whatever the resolution is, it can be resolved through effective communication. So some of the cons of owning real estate is when an investor gets into a property that is not giving them the income that they anticipated. I had an investor call me who stated that they purchased the property and their rents are not covering all their expenses. Well, they inflated the numbers prior to closing and they inflated the rents and they're barely making enough money in order for them to break even. That is something that can't be fixed immediately. He's going to have to sit up there and add additional income to break even. That's a real problem when you have an aggressive realtor who tells you what the comps are, and oftentimes he didn't pull comps or look at what the rental rates were prior to closing. That's an issue. Okay, it's hard to create compelling returns. That's an issue. We talked about the tenant who doesn't pay their rent. That's an issue. At the end of the day, landlording requires you to be a person who stays on top of the numbers, who stays on top of your tenants. If you can do those things, there really isn't too much of a con. If you decide that you're not a people's person, landlord may not be for you. If you do not like conflict, landlord may not be for you. If you don't like being hands-on, going places, landlord may not be for you. But if you're flexible, if you're ambitious and you like to work and you like to work with people and you like the idea of creating passive income, then landlord is for you. So let's go over my screening criteria. My screening criteria is one that I developed over working with the Chicago Housing Authority for over 10 years, being a property manager for 10 years, and figuring out what really works. So these are the things that I want you guys to take out a pen and paper and write them down. So everybody grab a pen and paper because I'm going to give you guys my screening criteria. Okay. Okay, so screening is the most essential aspect of landlording. I don't care what no one says. This is the most important part. The reason you're able to collect your money is because you've got good tenants. Okay, so the very first thing is, I tell everyone, verify the verifications. That is the most important thing today with computers and everything that we have. Verifying everything that a person gives to you is like the most important thing. You can get a person who says that Mr. Jones is my landlord, and once I go to the Cook County Recorder of Deeds, Mr. Jones is not who is on the title or the deed. So you need to verify that the person who is on the deed is actually the person that they're giving you the information for. Now, if it is a property management company, make sure that it is an actual property management company. Her Aunt Joe should not be doing her landlord verification unless they're living inside of a family-owned building. But if it is a family-owned building, your Cook County Recorder of Deeds should match up with whoever they're giving you the landlord verification for. Next thing is income requirements. My income requirement is 3 times the monthly rent here in Chicago. So if the rent is $1,000, they need to bring in $3,000. Now, I verify every person's income. So that means if they tell me that they're working at Home Depot, and they give me check stubs for Home Depot, I'm going to call that Home Depot to verify and make sure. All I'm going to do is simply call, say, hello, I'm calling, can I speak with Joan Smith, please? And I'm going to call that Home Depot if that's where they tell me that they work. If they tell me they're working at a nursing home, I'm just going to call that nursing home and ask, can I speak with them? I have had it so many times where a person has given me paycheck stubs, they've given me verification, and come to find out that they did not work there. And that's just because they were at home making arts and crafts and gave me what they wanted. Another thing is that I will ask for bank statements to show direct deposits. If you give me check stubs and it says direct deposit, I actually ask for the bank statement that shows the direct deposit. Verify all the verifications that you receive. Now, what's been going on here in Chicago is that people are using VPN numbers in place of their Social Security numbers. I've had it whereas I've run a background check on them, and maybe 2 or 3 things show up underneath the report when I do use Smart Move to do the background check. Now, if someone is a 40-year-old driving a BMW and they pull up to my spot to come and to move in, and they have everything that you can need, I ask, I pull up their report. There's no car payment on there. They have just maybe 1 phone bill and something else. That's a VPN number. So what I tell people is make sure that the credit report matches up with the person. If you get something that only has a phone bill on it, maybe a small credit card, and there's nothing else on there, use a little bit of common sense to say, hey, this is a 40-year-old person. They're driving a car. They clearly they have a credit card, but nothing is showing up on this thing. What I go back through and ask them for is Social Security card and ID, because 99.9%, if there's nothing on that report, it may be a VPN number. So I use a company. She asked, what do I use for background check? I use a company called Smart Move, and I'll tell you a little bit more about Smart Move. But make sure that when you're doing your screening, that they are not using a VPN number. And right now in Chicago, that is the hottest thing that people who are under eviction or are currently inside of the system that they're using. Next thing I do is I go on the judicial system to type in their name to see if they have a pending eviction, to see if there's a pending eviction inside of Cook County for that person's name. Because if they gave you a fake VPN number and they gave you their real name, the Social Security, the filing isn't going to pop up the same inside of the circuit court. So I go on there to look to see if they have any pending eviction. Those things have been very essential. Now, we talked about check stubs, bank statement, and employment verification. We did the credit and background screening report. That's very important. Now, when it comes to Smart Move, one thing about me is that I don't want anyone's Social Security number. I don't want any of their information until they're becoming a tenant. I use Smart Move because Smart Move only requires us to take their email. The tenant and the applicant is responsible for inputting their own information in the system, and then Smart Move gives us the report back. So you don't have to worry about identity theft or any of those things while you're using Smart Move to screen your tenants. Okay, so that's the reason why I prefer Smart Move. Everything is great. I don't have any liability, and it just eliminates all of that. So another thing we do is evaluate the debt to income ratio. I personally choose to have tenants that have a 30 to 40% debt to income ratio, not to exceed that. The reason being is I've had plenty of tenants who look good, who drive good, who smell good, who have had a lot of debt. And so if you have a lot of debt and a lot of bills, I am probably the last person you pay on a consistent basis. So therefore, I stick to the 30 to 40% debt to income ratio because I can see off of the credit report whether or not they can afford to pay my rent. So that is something that I stick to for all of my tenants that I select inside of my building. Now, it's very important that whatever you select, your screening selection is for one, your screening selection is the same for all. I consistently use the screening selection for every tenant. The landlord verification. So when it comes to the landlord verification, like I told you, Aunt Joe, Uncle Bob can do the landlord verification. These are the things that I ask for. I ask for the landlord verification along with the three rental receipts or 3 Zelles or 3 proof the payment was paid to that landlord. Cash paying tenants must also provide 3 months of bank statements that show their rent was paid. People nowadays are saying, well, I pay my landlord by cash. That's fine. I need to see the transaction. If they're not able to supply proof that they made their payments or that they gave their landlord rent, that is a denial for me. Okay, so if you can't prove that you paid it, I won't accept you. We talked about the landlord must match the landlord on record or the recorder of deeds. Okay, now this is my additional screening that I don't know anyone else that does it, but I do it. I do a home inspection. That means that I'll schedule a week that I'm going to come out to your house between a specific time, and I don't tell you what day I'm going to come, and I'll do a home inspection. That means that I am coming there and inspect your house. Now, this is the caveat. I might give you a 3-day window. That means everyone on your application must be present. That means you, your baby daddy, your grandma, your mama, your kids. Everyone must be present. I want to see how you take care of the current place that you've been living on. And the address must match what's on your ID and what matches the paperwork that you sent to me. So I'm going to that address. And I do a house inspection. The walls, the floors, the cleanliness of the unit, those are things that I look at. I had it one time where a lady had everything on paper perfect. She had the income, she had the employment, she had everything perfect. When I went to her house, it was disgusting. Holes in the wall, the closet doors were broken. And me being a person who gets my hair braided, what I discovered was she was actually using her house to braid hair in. The front yard had hair on the ground, and the front porch looked like it had just been having a whole bunch of people that hang out there. And I was like, oh, no. She failed for her house inspection, and therefore she wasn't able to move in with us. But the wear and tear on my house, because we renovate our houses and make them look good, is very, very, very important. So I'm not ever going to move a person into one of my homes that I have to pay thousands of dollars after they move out to restore the home. So that was important. Another thing is, with every applicant that has children, I request their report cards. Now, report card requesting is very important because if you have 4 kids and all of your kids are hellraisers, and I can see that on their report cards, that's a no for me. So my screening criteria is exactly the same. And we'll talk about the home inspection. I'll answer that for you. The screening criteria is the same for every person. So it's not discrimination as long as you're consistent across the board. And those report cards, and I also want to know, how is it that they, what's the time? So on the back of my application, it asks you how many young adults under the age of 18 will be living in there. What are their school schedules? What are their extracurricular activities? And on the back, the parent is able to say, well, this child is in elementary school, this child is in high school, the extra activities are basketball, football. On weekdays, they go to after school program. That is important to me because I want to know if you're working 9 to 5 and you don't get home till 6 or 7, what are your kids doing during those hours? If they're in my house kicking it with their friends, that's a problem. If you don't have control of your kids, that's a problem. If your kid is a latchkey kid, it's fine, but I need to know what they're doing, because it's the times that the parent isn't there that the problems with the kids. But I also take into account what that kid's report card and everything looks like. So that is important to me as well. Parents that have good kids, they blast it. I have an excellent kid. Here's my kid's report card. People who have like Hellraiser kids, they never want to show you the report card. I can never get a report card from a parent who has a Hellraiser, and it's fine. They just cannot, they didn't meet that qualification. Now, someone asks, how do I approach the home inspection part? On day one, when they come to see my units, I give them a piece of paper that says, if you're interested, please send me these things, and these are the things that are required. On the day that they come to view the unit, they are told what the requirements are. We have to go through your verification, your background check. We do a home inspection. If you have young adults under the age of 18, we also request that their report card on day one. There is never a time where it's not disclosed to them. So if it's something that they don't want to share, then 99% they will not be applying for your units. So you just make sure at the beginning, on the front end, that you disclose it to them so they know what to expect. And if they're going to pay $40 for their screening on Smart Move, then they're prepared to move forward. Okay, so that is my screening criteria. Do you guys have any questions you want to ask about screening?
Hi, can you just go over like the process again? Okay, so when you meet the tenant, you give them the criteria list.
Yes.
And then if they're okay with the criteria list, then you do the Smart Move.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
When a tenant comes out to see the apartment, they like the apartment. I first have everyone sign in when they check in to come and see the apartment. So I have a sheet of paper that shows me who they are, and I have their email information as well. When they tell me that they like the apartment, they like to proceed, I give them a sheet of paper that has the criteria and give them my email. You need to send me an email with your email address so we can start the process. From there, I go inside of my Smart Move, put in their email, the address, the apartment, where it's located, what the rent is, and Smart Move then sends them a link to fill out an application. That application, after the screening, comes back to me. If it passes the screening criteria that I have set up in Smart Move, then I reach out to the applicant and let them know, hey, Smart Move has approved you. I need to start collecting these additional items. And they have maybe 48 hours to submit to me their paycheck stubs, bank statements, background check, and everything. And they give me those documents. After those documents are then reviewed, then I tell them, great, congratulations, you've passed our application process. Now I need to do a home inspection, which is the final phase. We set up the home inspection to let them know, can you please have everyone that will be living in the unit present at the home inspection? And we go and do the home inspection. Now, the credit score requirement is different. Some people have a 600, some people have a 620. It's based more on debt to income ratio, and there's no evictions and no outstanding debts. So if a person has 580 because they filed a bankruptcy, but they have no outstanding debt and they have a low debt to income ratio, they can still pass. So my screening isn't necessarily based on credit score. It's based more on debt to income ratio, no outstanding utility bills, and being able to afford the rent, which must be at 3 times the monthly rental rate. Because you'd be surprised, there's a lot of applicants that are fresh out of bankruptcy that have extremely low credit scores, but they meet the rest of the criteria. And I don't I don't tell a person that because they're fresh out of bankruptcy, they can't apply. They just have to meet the rest of the criteria. Because people that file bankruptcy, they want that fresh start. They will make sure that they pay their rent and do everything else as well. Any more questions on screening?
That's a great point that you make about the bankruptcy. People who are fresh out of bankruptcy, they don't have the debt that other people have, so they really are in a better position.
Yep. Repeat that.
Right.
Steph, what was that last question? She said she's unclear about.
Unclear about what you mean, no outstanding debt. You mean unpaid or collections, and I think that's what
Unpaid,
she's saying. So
unpaid and collection.
yeah, so usually like a utility bill would
Yep.
be an example of that. I mean, if they have a
People-
credit card and collections, that could be kind of your,
That's
for you to
an-
gauge, but
Yeah. So we
Okay.
look for no outstanding utility bills because all my units require for you to pay your light and gas. If your light and gas is in collections, that's the whole problem. My debt to income ratios, I look for someone that's between 30 and 40% debt to income ratio. Some people go 50, 60. I prefer you to have a lower debt to income ratio, 30 to 40. Okay. No more questions. Okay, so in closing, I wanted to talk to you guys about stabilizing to grow the portfolio.
before you do that, Lenore, I do want to do a little Q&A, just to kind of clarify some of the things that you said that I thought was important, if we got a few minutes.
Go ahead.
So one thing was, I want you to go back to the insurance. I know Brittany had the question about how do you select the insurance and what type of insurance coverage should you have as a landlord. And then I just want to mention that it is super important to put these properties in an LLC for limited liability reasons, so that if someone does, let's say your snow removal guy hasn't gotten there yet and there was a big snowfall and someone slips and falls in front of your property, well, what happens? Who gets sued? Who's going to carry that liability? So let's talk a little bit about that and how important that is. And Brittany, oh, I see you down there. Okay. All right, cool.
Okay.
So can you kind of cover that?
Okay, so I have had my share of lawsuits and I have never had a loss. So first thing is, as Stephanie said, Lenor Sherman owns 0 property. I have no property. I don't own any. All of my properties are underneath a LLC and they are inside the trust. So it is very, 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 very crucial that you, if this is an investment property, that you have it underneath the LLC. I just moved all my stuff from my LLC into a trust. And that is very important. The second thing is that both my LLC and my trust have insurance, liability insurance. I have had people who have slipped and fall, slipped on ice and everything else have happened to me. And they have tried to sue both Lenor Sherman and the LLC and the property management company. But at the end of the day, they could only sue the property management company. And I was always found not liable because it was something underlining as to why they sued. One lady was walking down her steps, said the handrail was missing, and she slipped on a skate. She was suing us for $50,000. Well, the cool thing is that she had just had a Section 8 inspection 2 days prior that sort of wiped away the fact that she didn't have a handrail. But the truth is that she told us that she slipped on a skate inside of the property. But had I not had that Section 8 and inspection prior, it would have been her word against ours. And so we won that case. We also had a suit where someone slipped on some ice coming down the stairs. For us, fortunate is that we actually use an outside contractor to shovel snow and salt all of our properties. And unfortunately, they had not salted the property and it was their responsibility to salt. So we didn't get fined for it, but the snow removal company did settle with her out of court and pay for damages because we did have a contract with them that they're supposed to salt and shovel within 2 hours of snowfall. So they actually did settle with her. Insurance is very important because you don't want to build up all of your wealth and acquire all of these properties and then lose it just to one accident. So you want to make sure that you have limited liability insurance. I have limited liability insurance. I have errors and omissions insurance. The errors and omission is for any type of contracts, any type of contracts, leases, or anything else. I keep a lawyer on retainer at all times in case of something that happens. But anytime we do work orders, we do inspections of the unit in case we're changing filters, unclogging toilet. Whoever is the maintenance person that goes there does just a visual of the property to make sure that everything is being upkept and taken care of. It's very important that you do those things. So, but insurance is very important, and making sure that your property is protected through an LLC or a trust is very important as well. Now, if you are going to permanently be investing, I highly recommend that you not just have your properties underneath a LLC, but you pre-establish trust so that when you submit a contract on a piece of property, that you're putting trust number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the sales contract. That is the very best way to protect you, is by putting the trust on the purchase contract instead of the LLC. So
that's
now,
a good point too.
Yeah, now
That's a
I'm at
great
the
point.
point of, I don't put anything underneath my investment company. Everything goes underneath. The trust is now the purchaser of all of the property that we purchase now. So that prevents people from knowing who you are, because when you move it from your name to an LLC, to the LLC, into the trust number, it's still a paper trail to show who the owner was. But when you exclusively purchase underneath the trust number, they don't know who the owner is. So that's very important. And I personally had to learn that over time and through my lawyers.
I actually own a property through a trust. It's the first property that I ever purchased. That's why no one knows that I purchased it with my aunt. I was like 22, 23, and my godfather made sure that I put it inside of my trust instead of purchasing it in my name. I mean, at the time, I did not know why he was doing that, but he is very wealthy, and I'm sure that's how he protects all of his assets. So it is important that you understand what that is. And we're actually going to do a Zoom on protecting your assets with someone who does that specifically. The other thing that I just wanted to point out, Lenor, that you said was important about making sure that you have some type of preventative maintenance in place, right? So if that lady who said that her handwear was missing, if you do quarterly maintenance checks where you're taking both a photo documentation, video documentation, you are supposed to be the person managing how this happens. So if you have a rail that's loose for 6 months, that should not be, right? I mean, you put these preventative maintenance measures in place for those reasons. So I just wanted to touch on that a tad bit. We have about 10 minutes left. Did anybody have any additional questions before Lenor wraps up? I just want to make sure.
I'm going to answer a couple of questions. They do a background credit check. So Smart Move does the background credit and eviction check. And then I personally go on to the Cook County Circuit Court to see whether or not a person has any pending evictions. And that is free for you to go on there and type in a person's name to see if there's anything that's outstanding underneath the person's name. Now, she asks, are all your properties under one LLC? They were. So I was purchasing all of my properties under Sherman Investment Group and refinancing under Sherman Investment Group. Now today, our attorney states that you should only have $1 million worth of properties underneath any particular trust. So we have multiple trust numbers now, and we separated our trust by condos, townhouses, single family houses, multi-unit buildings. So yes, I did do that at the beginning because I did not know better. And now we have multiple trusts that the properties are under. So we got trust A, B, C, D, E, F with them broken down, not to exceed $1 million under each trust number. So that's
now,
how
let me ask another question. Let me ask a follow-up question with that. With the what you saying, you put all of them under different trusts. Did you? I want to give them an idea of how much real estate you own. So can you just give them an overall view of how many doors you own and how much that is in equity or in asset total, just so they can get an idea of what you're managing?
Right now, I have 32 doors that are a mix of condos, townhouses, and 1 to 4 units. And right now it's worth $2.7 million. and we have $600,000 in total debt on the entire portfolio.
And so this is important because I want you guys to understand that she strategically buys these properties a certain way so that they are heavy on equity and low on debt. So as you heard her say, she owns about $2.7 million in real estate, over 32 doors, and they only carry $600,000 worth of debt. So they have about $2.1 million in equity sitting in their properties right now. So if, let's say, she wanted to diversify or start a business, she can go in and pull money out of either one of those homes, and most likely that tenant would still carry that mortgage and debt on that property. So essentially, she would still be carrying those, you know, kind of debt free, so to speak. But I wanted you guys to get an idea of how much she's managing. Okay, so when starting out, you may not be looking at all of these things, but one important thing she said was to buy inside of a trust. This is something that we are not taught. And we kind of, and the other part of owning that trust too is asset protection for your family. That is probably more important than the liability part of it. What happens to your property, to your assets, should something happen to you? And setting up a trust the proper way, make sure that those assets are managed properly and get where they're supposed to go in terms of your family legacy. So I'll let Lenore, I just wanted to create a visual for them.
So I want you guys to understand how I started. I took my retirement money from CHA. So I started my real estate at 18, 2008, the bubble bust. I ended up filing bankruptcy and starting all over with my husband in 2010. When we started back together in 2010, my biggest fear, I'm gonna say fear, was ever going into foreclosure or bankruptcy ever again. So we chose to eliminate a lot of the debt. So what I chose to do was I became a licensed realtor and started selling real estate. While I was working my full-time job at CHA, my real estate funds and my real estate money went to us purchasing properties. My husband and I would buy a townhouse, anything under $25,000 a door, and we would buy it. We would physically do the labor inside of that townhouse, put a Section 8 tenant inside of that house, and then pay off the personal loan. So we bought it for $25,000 with a personal loan, just letting you guys know. And then we put our sweat equity into it. A year later, it was worth $125,000. We had a payment of $500 on it from our personal loan, and then we would rent it out for $1,200. We would take that $500 payment and pay Wells Fargo back with it. We would double up the payments and keep probably $200 and keep that money. And we paid it off in less than 3 years. And then we turned around and we bought more. We cross-collateralized our free and clear properties to buy more properties with those. And we will buy the property, rehab it, refinance it, and then get it back. So we did that for a nice amount of time until we were able to start building up some assets. Okay, so if that makes sense to you guys, at one time we took out 6 personal loans. I do not recommend this to anyone today, but we took out 6 personal loans so we could buy 6 properties, and we worked like dogs to get those properties fixed up and leased up and rented out to Section 8 and rented so that we could build up our portfolio quickly and fastly. I don't recommend that today unless you have a strategic plan and you know that you guys are going to work together as a team, because it's extremely hard. But that's how we really built our portfolio up quick. I am 18 doors right now today away from not having to do anything. So our goal was for retirement was 50 good stabilized doors, because 50 doors brings us in $25,000 per month with me sitting on the couch or sitting anywhere that I decide that I want to sit. All of my properties bring me in a minimum of $500 per door, free and clear, after all expenses paid. Some doors bring in more, but that's what my average door brings me in per month right now. And so that was our goal. The thing is that with passive income, and the last thing I want to talk about, landlord into retirement, is that it is very essential that if you want to stop working, reclaim your time, and do whatever it is that you want to do, play with your kids or whatever, is that you create a plan of action. For me and my husband, it was more so like, I wanted to first replace my salary from CHA. Okay, I was able to do that. Then I wanted to be able to replace his salary from working for the state. I was able to do that, but then he made the decision he doesn't want to quit his job. You know, I made these decisions as to how much money I needed to bring inside my household so that regardless of what it is that we wanted to do, that we had the financial freedom in order to do it. Make a plan based upon what your needs are, because 50 doors may not be for everybody. You might only need in your town, in your city, 10 doors for you to replace your income, or 20 doors, whatever that is. Whatever your plan is, make it something that you can work and you can achieve. Because I tell everybody, to get to 50 doors, even for myself, it's taking me time. It took me time. It took me learning a process. It took me learning how to be diligent. It took me learning how to screen tenants. It takes time. And then you have to make sure that before you jump into all of these different projects, is that you get them stable first. A lot of investors' biggest problem is stabilization. You cannot grow, you cannot scale if you cannot stabilize, because you don't want to be bleeding out the back and bleeding from the front. So you want to make sure that you stabilize. And for all of you guys that are realtors on here, and we like to close on properties and real estate, make sure that you push stabilization to your investors, because the one thing in Chicago, we keep having these cycles of projects that are turning over, and then a year or two later you see somebody that moved out or the property foreclosed. If stabilization is a key aspect of real estate, then there would not be foreclosure and consistent turnover. So stabilization is very important. And then grow to your needs. If you need 30 units, grow to your need. Whatever your financial number is, grow to that number and just enjoy the process. One thing about me is that I enjoy fixing up houses. I enjoy putting families inside of my houses because it makes me feel good. I know what I'm offering, I know what I'm giving, and it puts a smile on my face. But enjoy the process. Don't just do it for the money, but do it for changing the community, do it for building for your family, do it for reaching your purpose, and do it for the community. That's it. And if you guys want to follow me, I forget to say this, you can follow me on Instagram, Lenor Sherman, and Facebook as well. Any last questions? Oh, would you be willing to share the equation to calculate the income on a buy and hold option? Sure, Miss White. Okay, so for me, I like to spend $25,000 per door. That is what I like to spend. That I will buy anything for $25,000, and depending on what it looks like, $50,000 per door. At the end of the day, I need to get 100% of anything that I invest inside of a property out. So a property that I can go over with you, that I just finished last week on 100th in Indiana, our acquisition cost was $80,000. My renovation cost was $40,000. So I was all in for $120,000. My down payment with my hard money lender was $20,000. So therefore I owed $100,000 on the property. After we put in, did a cosmetic renovation, we updated the kitchen, the bathroom, the flooring, and painted the unit. I rented the upstairs for $1,000. I rented the downstairs for $1,500. The property appraised for $265,000. My monthly payment on that property is $1,300, which the downstairs unit covers that and gives me an additional $2,000. And so we make a profit of $1,200 on that property. I refinanced that property at $180,000. I paid off the $100,000 for the hard money lender and got $80,000 put back inside my pocket. And even once I got the $80,000 put back in my pocket, I still make a profit of $1,200 on the property.
And is that including your maintenance costs, taxes, and insurance?
Yes, $1,300 a month is my payment on that property at $180,000.
Right, and you guys catch how she did that. Now, I'm gonna send out a follow-up email because I'm gonna have that broken down on paper so you guys can actually see it. And anyone who registered with your email today will get that in the next couple of days, okay? So that kind of breakdown structure. So you can see what she refinanced and how her numbers broke down. We have one more question and we're going to wrap it up. We run about 4 minutes over. Victoria, you had a question?
Yeah, I had my hand up for a long time. Hello, Miss Sherman. How are you today? Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I am so grateful for everything you shared, but I do got a question. As a property manager or a property owner, what should we put in reserve per door to maintain and manage the property? And then also, you said you have 32 properties. How many of those have Section 8 tenants and how many of those are market rate, especially nowadays and, you know, current market demand? If you can answer those questions for me, I really want to know, like, how do I manage the cost of operating the property and still show a profit?
Okay, so in every property that I currently have, I have a $250 escrow that's inside of the account. So that is the minimum escrow that I put inside of account per door. Now with that also, when we acquire the property, we check everything, the furnaces, the electric, the roof. We have a full thorough inspection on everything inside of the property on the front end in case that while we're doing a renovation, something needs to be addressed. So we make sure we do that on the front end. But we keep $250 inside the escrow for every door at a property as well. That doesn't include a separate emergency escrow that probably has another $5,000 that's up in there for any emergencies. So you want to make sure that you have an escrow and an emergency fund for all of your buildings. Now, as far as my mix count consists of half and half. I don't do all of anything inside of any one building. So that means that if I have 2 units, one may be market, one is Section 8. If I have 4 units, 2 might be Section 8, 2 might be market. But I also have a mix of Section 8, market, and VA. So I use a combination of all the different subsidy programs as well. And then you have threshold that pays rent for anyone that has their services too. So there's a lot of different subsidy programs outside of just Section 8 that a person can rent their units to. And sometimes I get fire victims who want to rent a house and they pay almost double what the rent is. A $1,200 rent could be $2,400 with a fire victim as well. So,
and a fire victim with their insurance would cover that rent up for a certain amount of time.
Yes.
Yes. And that is important for you to look into different programs and things in your communities, because a lot of these people on Zooms are in different states. So it's important for you to understand what type of programs you have available and subsidies you have available in your state that you can take advantage of as a landlord. And also too, it kind of gives you purpose. You know that you're helping a family that has reached out to some type of service or program in need of help. So it could just further your purpose. If this is a purpose-driven mission for you, as it is for Lenor, that's how she ends up with a lot of different types of families inside of her units. The only other thing I wanted to mention about the insurance was make sure that your tenants have renters insurance as well, especially if you're renting a single family home. That's also important to make sure that, you know, in the event that something does occur, they have insurance to cover it. Is also important. All right.
That is a requirement.
Make sure info at, okay, Satcha, I do have your information. Does anybody else have any other questions for Lenor or myself or about W.I.R.E? How do you choose your market area? Ashantira, that's a good question. And I could tell you for myself, just in my experience, is that you should probably start in your own farming areas that you're most familiar with, most comfortable with, because your first couple of rental doors, you're going to be very hands-on. Nobody should be buying a 2-flat and then hiring a management company, right? So you want to make sure. And Lenor, if you can share with them, I know this because I work close alongside Lenor for many years now, but can you share with them how you go about vetting out that area and that property?
Okay, so back in the day, I used to say I want an area that I can feel safe in, that I'm comfortable in, and you know, you could drive past the block. So my flipping is totally different from the holds. So when it comes to flipping, I pretty much look at the area, look at the houses, look to see how the block is being kept, look at the comps, look at how much money I could potentially make, and look at the numbers, you know, for selecting properties that are for flips. Now, for holds, if there's human bodies on the block, I will buy it if the numbers make sense. So I will buy it on a block that is god awful if the numbers make sense. I look at what the acquisition cost is, what the construction cost is, what the market rents are, and to see whether or not I'm going to make my $500 per door. So I bought a property that was on 66th and Sangamon in Inglewood, and the property was, the city was trying to demolish it. We're going to leave it like that. It had broken sewer in the basement. It was straight poo in the building. It was the nastiest thing. And everybody was like, I don't even understand why you bought that building. I love the nastiest, ugliest building. That is what I love. But on 66th and Sangamon, I acquired the 2 flat for $20,000. I saw that 2 flats that were similar that had been renovated were going for $240,000, even in Inglewood. So I said, oh, I'm gonna buy this building. I bought the building for $20,000. We put about $80,000 inside of the building. The building came back and appraised at $256 once we were done. We put $100,000 in there. We put new heat and electric. We updated the furnaces. We put laminate flooring, painting, voila. We rented the upstairs for $1,200. We rented the downstairs for $1,000. We brought in $2,200. My payment is $960 a month. It gave me my numbers. Now, certain area people don't like, but what I've come to realize that it doesn't matter where a property is located. If there are people over there and people live there, I will buy it and rent it out, and I might keep the rents low. So if it's in the ghetto, it's going to be the most beautiful house in the ghetto. So I will buy anywhere. I will buy in Indiana. I will buy in the ghetto. I will buy in the slums. It's just going to be the nicest house over there. And people have a tendency to stay where they're comfortable. Just period. At the end of the day, some areas that I would never want to live in, people stay where they're comfortable at. So if it's something that you find for a flip, be very particular. But if it's a buy and hold, you could buy anywhere where the numbers make sense. Okay.
And that's a part of what we do in revitalizing communities. We want to make sure that we're not just buying in communities that are appreciating, but when you do that, you're now appreciating a community. You're recreating that pride and ownership. You're saying that we can have nice, safe, comfortable, and well-kept places to live. So I appreciate that acumen that you can buy anywhere that there are people. So do not forget that. That's really important. I'm glad you dropped that gem as well. So we're at time. I wish we could go all day, you know, we can, but we do have to wrap up. It's a couple of things that I would like to highlight before we leave each other. We do have one last and final Zoom to this series next week with Kaylani and Brittany, who are the co-founders of Women in Real Estate. And we're going to have them talk about a couple of things. So you should definitely catch that Zoom. Go ahead and register for it if you haven't already. The other, and get it on your calendar so that you can get that reminder link, right, 10 minutes before. The other thing is there is a great event coming up on the 30th of July in Houston with Women in Real Estate. There's going to be a plethora of speakers there. So if you're in the Houston area or plan to be down there, make sure you go to our W.I.R.E Women in Real Estate Instagram to learn more information. Brittany, what'd you say? I'm sorry. Dallas. It's in Dallas. That's right.
It's in Dallas. Yeah.
Right. So if you're in Dallas,
the following weekend is in Dallas.
That's why I bring you up on screen, Brittany. But definitely make sure you check out our Women in Real Estate Instagram page. It's full of great events, information, resources, and just connecting to the community. If you are on Clubhouse, please definitely connect with us there. We also have a Facebook page, the Women in Real Estate Facebook page, and look out for more events coming up in the Chicagoland area. I am committed to servicing the community, helping realtors, investors, and everyday women learn how to create and add value to their lives. This is not all about making money. This is about revitalizing our communities, stepping up and standing up for our communities. We need us, okay? And no one is going to take care of us like us. So make sure that you are being purposeful and purpose-driven in this business, or you will tap out sooner rather than later. This is not for the weak-hearted. So make sure that there is a purpose behind your plan. And if you guys have any follow-up questions, you can reach Lenor Sherman. She's Lenor Sherman across the board. So LinkedIn, Instagram, lenorsherman.com. Also, she also has a book that she wrote on project management. So if you're looking to flip and fix and flip, that's a great book to pick up as well. Am I missing out? Am I leaving out anything, Brittany, Lenore?
No, we're
No.
good.
All right, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on a Wednesday afternoon. I hope it gives you the push that you need to get over hump day. And we will see you on the next call or the next event.
All right, talk to you later.
Talk
Thanks,
to you guys
guys.
later. You're welcome. Bye-bye. We had over 20 people on.